My name is Helena Porter, and I was 34 years old when my parents cut me off for marrying a black contractor, then came back 8 years later needing his name on their house. Not his help, not his advice, his legal name. My mother arrived at my front door on a rainy Tuesday with a beige folder pressed to her chest and said, "Helena, this is family. Andre can sign one paper and make this whole thing go away." The house she meant was the same white brick house on Willow Crest Lane where my father had once stood on the porch and told my husband, "You do not step inside my home. Not now. Not ever." That was 2 weeks before our wedding. Now the mortgage was 91 days past due. The foreclosure notice listed $64,870 in arrears, and the bank would not approve the refinance unless someone with clean credit and construction income co-signed the new loan. Andre had both. What my mother did not know was that the folder held more than a refinance application. It held a draft deed adding my golden child brother to the property after the loan closed. While using my husband's credit to save a house, he had been banned from entering. She wanted Andre's name on the mortgage. She wanted my brother's name on the deed. And she wanted me quiet enough to call that family. By the time we sat in the bank conference room with the loan officer, my parents, my brother, and Andre's attorney, I had the foreclosure notice, the deed draft, the old porch video, and my father's own email saying Andre would never belong in that house. So when my mother slid the pen toward my husband and said, "Please, Andre, be the bigger man," I said the sentence she had spent 8 years earning. "You would not let my husband step on your porch. Now you want his name on your mortgage." Before I tell you what happened in that room, welcome back to Hush and Tell Stories. If you have ever been rejected until someone needed your name, your money, or your peace, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments what you would have done if the people who shut your family out suddenly needed your signature, and subscribe if calm truth is the kind of ending you understand. I grew up in Laurel Springs, North Carolina, in a house that always looked warmer from the street than it felt from the inside. My parents, Russell and Victoria Porter, lived for reputation. My father sold commercial flooring and could make any handshake look honorable if a client was watching. My mother taught etiquette classes at the community center, which meant she earned money instructing strangers' daughters how to hold forks while never learning how to hold her own tongue when kindness was required. We were not rich, but we performed rich very well. The lawn was edged. The porch was swept. The wreaths changed with seasons. My mother's hydrangeas looked like they had been threatened into blooming. Every Christmas, our house appeared on the neighborhood candlelight tour, and women from church told Mom she had such a gift for making a home. I used to stand in the hallway during those tours and wonder why a home needed so many witnesses to prove it was one. My younger brother, Camden, was the child the house revolved around. Camden was handsome, charming, athletic, and allergic to consequences. If he broke something, he had energy. If I questioned something, I had attitude. If Camden needed money, it was investment. If I needed help, it was planning failure. When he crashed Dad's truck at 19, Mom said, "Boys learn through mistakes." When I got a B in chemistry at 16, she said, "Helena, you cannot expect the world to make room for mediocrity." I learned early that my family had different dictionaries, depending on whose name came before the mistake. Camden's debts were setbacks. My boundaries were betrayals. Camden's dreams were family projects. My dreams were nice if they did not inconvenience anyone. By 13, I had become the practical daughter. The one who remembered receipts, made lists, calmed my mother before parties, helped Dad run numbers for invoices, and drove Camden to practice when he lost his license for 30 days, and everyone pretended that was not what happened. My mother praised me for being sensible, but only when sensible meant available. If I said yes, I was mature. If I said no, I was cold. If I asked why Camden was never asked to help, Mom would say, "Your brother has a different temperament." That sentence carried an entire childhood inside it. Different temperament meant he could disappoint people without being asked to repair anything. Different temperament meant I was expected to carry what he dropped. Different temperament meant the family protected his future by spending mine. I became a commercial lease administrator for a regional pharmacy chain because paperwork made sense to me. I reviewed lease renewals, rent escalations, notice deadlines, maintenance clauses, insurance certificates, and property tax pass-throughs. It sounds boring if you have never watched a missed signature cost a company $40,000. To me, it felt peaceful. A contract did not care who cried first. A deadline did not change because someone had a charming smile. My mother hated my job when it entered conversation. "Helena reads fine print for a living," she would tell people with a small laugh. So of course she reads too much into everything. That was how my family handled truth. They made it sound like a personality problem. I met Andre Hayes because of a leak in a pharmacy ceiling. He owned a small construction company then, Hayes Residential Repair. It was just him, an old blue truck, 2 subcontractors, and a phone that never stopped ringing. I was the lease administrator assigned to the store repairs. He was the contractor who arrived exactly when he said he would, took photographs of the water damage, found the source in a failing rooftop drain, and sent an estimate so clear I forwarded it to my supervisor with the words, "This person understands documents." He was 29, broad-shouldered, warm-eyed, and calm in a way that was not passive. He listened before answering. He did not fill silence to prove he belonged in the room. When he explained a repair, he did not talk down to me or perform expertise. He just told the truth in complete sentences. The second time we met, it was at a second pharmacy location with a loose awning. The third time, he brought me coffee because he had noticed mine was always cold by the time inspections ended. "I guessed plain coffee," he said, "no sugar. That is either thoughtful or risky." He smiled. Most good repairs begin with risk assessment. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. That was the beginning. At first, I did not tell my parents much about him. Not because I was ashamed, because I knew them. I knew their politeness had gates inside it. My parents did not use the blunt ugliness other people did. They were too careful for that. They spoke in class language, culture language, background language, fit language. When I finally told my mother I was seeing someone, she asked what his parents did before she asked what he was like. When I told her he owned a construction company, she said, "Oh, so he works with his hands." I said yes, beautifully. She blinked at that. When I said his name was Andre Hayes, her face performed neutrality so hard it became a confession. "Andre," she repeated. "Yes." "And where is he from? Durham originally?" "No, sweetheart, I mean his people." I stood in my parents' kitchen holding a glass of water and realized the room I had grown up in had become smaller in one sentence. His people are his mother, Denise, a retired school principal, and his father, Malcolm, who owns a barber shop. Mom smiled tightly. "I was only asking." That became her favorite defense. "I was only asking." My father was more direct, though he dressed it in concern. "Contracting is unstable," he said when Mom told him. "You know how those guys can be. Cash work, no benefits, up and down. Andre is licensed, insured, and has better books than half the vendors I deal with." Dad looked irritated. "So now you are defending him like a client." "No, like someone you have not met. I know enough." "You know his job and his name." Dad's jaw tightened. Sometimes that tells you plenty. That sentence was the first crack I could not patch. Andre met them anyway because I still believed exposure could cure prejudice if the truth was solid enough. I invited him to Sunday dinner. He wore a navy button-down, brought flowers for my mother, and a jar of peach preserves from his aunt's kitchen because I had once mentioned my father liked peaches. He shook Dad's hand, complimented the porch railing, and asked Mom if she needed help carrying dishes. My mother smiled at him like he was a waiter at a place she did not intend to return to. Dad asked him 3 questions. "How long have you been in business? Do you rent or own? Do you plan to keep doing labor forever?" Andre answered all 3 calmly. 6 years registered, 4 years full-time. I own a small house on East Candler. And I plan to keep building as long as people keep needing things built. Mom said, Helena works very hard. She needs someone with a stable path. Andre looked at her and said, I agree. That was the first time my mother's script faltered. She had expected defensiveness. Andre gave her agreement without surrender. At dinner, Camden arrived late, smelling like cologne and unpaid parking tickets. He slapped Andre on the shoulder like they were already friends and said, So you're the guy stealing my sister from the family business. We did not have a family business. We had a family habit. Andre smiled. I thought she came with her own title. Camden laughed because he did not understand he had been corrected. After Andre left that night, Dad stood on the porch and watched his truck pull away. That man is not right for you. Why, you know why, say it. He looked at me sharply. I am not playing games, neither am I. Mom stepped between us. Helena, nobody is saying anything hateful. We just see differences you are pretending not to see. What differences? Mom's lips pressed together. Background, family structure, expectations, how people will look at you. People like you. She flinched as if I had slapped her. That was the beginning of the end, of being the obedient daughter. When Andre proposed 10 months later, he did it in the unfinished kitchen of the first house he had bought to renovate. There were no cabinets, no flooring, and no romantic lighting. Just studs, sawdust, and a temporary work lamp buzzing overhead. He got down on one knee on a piece of cardboard and said, I want to build a life with you where the foundation is honest before the paint goes on. It was the most Andre sentence in the world. I said yes before he finished breathing. My parents refused to celebrate. Mom cried on the phone and said I was choosing difficulty. Dad said I was embarrassing him. Camden said, You always have to prove a point. Andre's parents hugged me so hard I cried into his mother's shoulder. Denise Hayes held my face in both hands and said, Baby, love does not need permission from people committed to misunderstanding it. I thought about that sentence often. 2 weeks before the wedding, I made one last attempt at peace. I asked my parents if Andre and I could come by to talk, not argue, talk. Mom said yes, but her voice carried a warning. When we arrived at Willow Crest Lane, the porch light was on. I remember that detail because my father had always said a porch light meant welcome. Andre parked in the driveway. He wore khakis and a gray sweater. I wore the blue dress Mom used to say made my eyes look softer. Dad opened the front door before we reached it. He did not step aside. Helena can come in, he said. Andre stopped at the bottom step. I looked at my father. What? Dad's face was hard, but his hands were shaking. You heard me. Mom appeared behind him, pale and stiff. Russell, she whispered, but not like she disagreed. Like she wanted him to say it more quietly. Dad looked at Andre. You do not step inside my home. Not now, not ever. The neighborhood went silent in my ears. Andre did not move. He looked at my father for a long second, then at me. I expected him to defend himself. I expected anger. I almost wanted it because anger would have made the ugliness easier to name. Instead, Andre said, Helena, you do not have to stand on this porch. I turned to my mother. Are you going to say anything? She folded her arms. I think your father has been very clear. That was the moment I chose. Not the wedding day. Not the argument later, that porch. I took Andre's hand and walked back to the truck. My father called after me, if you leave with him, do not come back expecting us to pretend this is normal. I turned once. Normal is not the same as right, then I left. They did not come to the wedding, not my parents, not Camden. My mother's sister came, quietly, and cried through the ceremony. Aunt Laurel handed me a small envelope before the reception and said, Your grandmother would have loved him. Inside was a photograph of my late grandmother standing on that same Willow Crest porch 30 years earlier, holding me as a baby. On the back, in Grandma's handwriting, it said, A house is only good if it lets love in. I tucked it into my bouquet. Andre and I married in the courtyard of a small inn outside Raleigh under string lights and a sky that threatened rain but held back. His parents stood with us. His sister read a blessing. My friend Marin signed as witness. When the officiant asked who presented the bride with love, Denise Hayes stood and said, "All of us who know what she is worth." That sentence held me up. Andre's business grew slowly at first, then faster. He earned it the hard way. Early mornings, late invoices, permit offices, weather delays, clients who changed tile selections 3 times, subcontractors who showed up late, materials that doubled in price. He kept records so carefully that I used to tease him he was the only contractor whose change orders had table of contents. "You married a lease administrator," he would say. I adapted. After 5 years, Hayes Residential Repair became Hayes and Finch Construction when he partnered with an older licensed builder named Thomas Finch. 2 years after that, Andre bought Thomas out when Thomas retired. By our 8th anniversary, Andre's company was building custom homes, renovating historic properties, and developing small infill projects that actually looked like they belonged in the neighborhoods where they stood. People who once called him "that contractor" started saying Andre Hayes with a different tone. Respect has a strange way of arriving after money. My parents watched from a distance, not directly, through other people. Aunt Laurel told me Mom asked whether Andre's company was really doing that well. An old neighbor told Andre that Dad had mentioned seeing one of his houses in a local magazine. Camden followed Hayes Construction on Instagram, unfollowed, then followed again after Andre's company won a Community Preservation Award. Nobody apologized. But their curiosity grew teeth. The first sign of trouble came from a public notice in the Laurel Springs Ledger. I saw it because my job taught me to read notices most people ignore. In between a zoning hearing and a storage auction listing was a foreclosure notice for 214 Willow Crest Lane, my parents' house. The arrears listed were $64,870. The trustee sale was scheduled for March 18th. The secured debt referenced a home equity line opened 3 years earlier for $286,000. I stared at the notice so long the words blurred. Andre found me at the kitchen counter. "What is it?" I handed him the paper. He read it. His face did not change much, but his jaw set in the way I knew meant anger had been given a chair and told to sit quietly. "Did you know?" he asked. "No." "Do you want to call them?" I shook my head. Not yet. That was the thing about estrangement. People think no contact means no feeling. It does not. The old house could still appear in a foreclosure notice and make me feel 10 years old, standing barefoot on the hardwood floor while Mom adjusted a vase before guests arrived. I did not want my parents homeless. I also did not want Andre turned into the solution for people who had rejected his humanity before respecting his credit score. The next day, Aunt Laurel called. "Your mother is going to reach out." I saw the notice. Aunt Laurel sighed. "I figured you would. What happened?" "Camden's business, of course." Camden had started a company called Porter Peak Outdoor Living. It sold luxury outdoor kitchens, pergolas, patio packages, and backyard fire features to people who wanted their grills to look like architecture. On social media, it was all drone shots, whiskey glasses on stone counters, and Camden standing in branded polos with one hand on a blueprint he probably had not read. In reality, according to Aunt Laurel, he had overextended, taken deposits before work was ready, used new project money to finish old projects, and borrowed against my parents' house through a home equity line Dad co-signed because Camden needed bridge capital. The bridge had collapsed. "How much?" I asked. "Your father will not say. Your mother says if they refinance, they can roll everything together." "Refinance with what income?" Silence. "Aunt Laurel," she sighed again. She mentioned Andre. The room went still. "No, Helena, I know, no." I told her that house once had a locked door for him. She said people change. Did she apologize before or after calculating his income? Aunt Laurel had no answer. My mother came to my house 2 days later. I had not invited her. It was raining, that cold North Carolina rain that makes the sky look dirty and the roads shine. I saw her through the front window, standing under our porch light with a beige folder pressed to her chest like she had arrived for a parent-teacher conference instead of a reckoning. For a second, I only saw my mother. Older, thinner, still perfectly dressed. Hair pinned back, pearl earrings, the same posture, the same face I had once searched for approval like water. Andre was in the workshop behind the house reviewing plans. I considered not answering. Then Mom knocked again. I opened the door but did not step back. That mattered. "Helena," she said. "Mom." Her eyes moved over my shoulder, into the house Andre had renovated himself. White oak floors, warm lights, built-in shelves. A kitchen he had rebuilt after work in those early years because we could not afford to hire anyone and he refused to live with cabinets that smelled like mice. "It is lovely," she said. I did not thank her. She looked back at me. "May I come in?" 8 years earlier, she had stood behind my father while he refused my husband entry to her house. I thought of that porch. I thought of Andre's hand in mine. "No," I said, her face flickered. "Helena. We can talk here, in the rain. You have an umbrella." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened the folder. "We need help, of course." No greeting could survive long once need, entered the room. I saw the foreclosure notice. Her mouth tightened. "Then you know this is serious." "I know the house is 91 days past due." She looked startled that I knew the number. Documents still made her uncomfortable when they were not in her favor. "Your father has been under enormous scent." "Res. What happened with Camden's business?" She glanced toward the street. "Camden had some unfortunate timing with clients." "That is not an amount. Business is complicated. Debt is specific." Her old irritation rose. "Must you always speak like a billing department? Must you always ask for help without telling the truth first?" She inhaled sharply. Then she opened the folder and pulled out a refinancing packet. The top page had Andre's name typed in a box. Andre Malakay's, co-borrower, not emergency contact, not consultant, co-borrower. My mother said, "Andre can sign one paper and make this whole thing go away." There it was. 8 years reduced to one paper. I looked at the rain behind her. "Does Andre know he is being considered?" "We were hoping you would speak to him." "No." "Helena, this is family." "Andre was not family when Dad blocked him from your porch." She flinched. "Your father was wrong." It was the first time I had ever heard her say anything close. I waited. She did not add, "and I was wrong too." That mattered. "What does the loan do?" I asked. "It refinances the mortgage and the home equity line, pays the arrears, and gives us time." "How much?" "The new principal would be around $478,000. I stared at her. The house was worth maybe $520,000 on a good day. You want Andre to co-sign nearly $500,000 on a house he was banned from entering. Her face tightened. "When you put it that way, you make it sound ugly." "It is ugly before I phrase it." She held the folder out. "Please just look." I did not take it. "Leave it on the porch table. Helena, leave it." She placed the folder down slowly, as if obeying me physically hurt. Then she said, "I know we made mistakes. Mistakes. A glass breaks by mistake. A father guarding a porch against a black man marrying his daughter is not a mistake. It is a choice with a house wrapped around it." I said, "I will review the documents. That is all." Her eyes filled. "You cannot let us lose our home to punish us." "I did not sign the loan." "Your brother is drowning." "He built the pool." Her face hardened. "There is the bitterness." "No," I said, "there is the invoice." She left without saying goodbye. I watched her walk to her car, beige folder now absent from her hands, and felt nothing clean. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not revenge. Just the old ache of a daughter, still wishing the wrong people had become better before needing her. Andre came in 20 minutes later, rain in his hair, saw the folder on the porch table and understood before I spoke. "Your mother?" "Yes." He dried his hands on a towel and looked at the folder without touching it. "Does it have my name in it?" "Yes." He closed his eyes, not long, just enough. "I am sorry," I said. He looked at me. "For what?" "For them. You do not own their choices." "I know, it still feels like they tracked mud through our house." He nodded. "Then let's look at where they stepped." We opened the folder at our kitchen table. That table had been one of Andre's early builds, maple with a dark seam down the center where he had joined two slabs. He said every good table needed to remember it had once been separate pieces. Inside the folder were the refinance application, debt summary, credit authorization forms, a hardship letter, property appraisal draft, foreclosure notice, and a bank checklist. At first glance, it was bad but simple. My parents owed $64,870 in arrears. The current mortgage balance was $181,300. The home equity line balance was $286,420. There were late fees, legal costs, unpaid insurance escrow, and a proposed refinance amount of $478,950. Then Andre found the second envelope. It had been tucked behind the bank checklist. "Helena," he said quietly. Inside was a draft quitclaim deed. Prepared by a paralegal service, not a law firm. Grantors, Russell Porter and Victoria Porter. Grantees, Russell Porter, Victoria Porter, and Camden Porter, as joint tenants with right of survivorship. Effective upon closing of refinance. Andre's name was not on the deed. His income would support the loan. His credit would carry the risk. His name would be on the mortgage debt. Camden's name would be added to ownership. I felt the old coldness move through me, the kind that comes when anger turns into structure. Andre read it twice. Then he set it down. "They want me on the hook and him on the house." "Yes." He looked at the wall where we kept framed photos from our wedding. His parents, Aunt Laurel, Marin laughing with champagne, me and Andre under string lights, rain finally falling behind us after the ceremony ended. He said they always did understand doors. "What do you mean?" They knew who they wanted inside. I reached for his hand. His thumb moved over my wedding ring. For 8 years, Andre had been generous about my family. Not naive, never that, but generous. He had never made me cut Aunt Laurel out because she was related to them. He had never mocked me for crying after holidays. He had never turned my parents into punchlines, though he had every right. Now their paperwork sat on the table, asking him to risk everything he had built for people who had once denied him the dignity of stepping on a porch. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Andre looked at the folder. "First, we get counsel. Second, we do not answer from hurt. Third, I am not signing." The relief was immediate and complicated. "I would never ask you to, I know." He looked at me. "But they will try to make you feel like you did." He was right. The calls started that night. Mom, Dad, Camden, Mom again. Then a text from Dad. "We need to talk like adults." That one almost made me laugh. Adults do not type another man's name into a loan package before asking whether he consents. Camden sent. "This is bigger than your grudge. Mom and Dad could lose everything." I replied, "Send the full business debt schedule and the authorization Andre signed, allowing his name on the application." No response. The next morning, Andre called his attorney, Nia Whitcomb. Nia was a real estate and construction attorney who had represented his company on contracts, liens, land purchases, and one ugly dispute with a developer who tried to blame a plumbing delay on Hayes Construction after changing the plans 3 times. Nia was calm, precise, and allergic to nonsense disguised as urgency. We met her at her office that afternoon. She reviewed the folder in silence, making small pencil marks in the margins. When she reached the quitclaim deed, she took off her glasses. "Did Andre authorize any credit pull?" "No," Andre said. Did he agree to be considered as co-borrower? No. Did either of you know Camden was being added to title? No, I said. Nia looked at me. Do your parents understand that a lender will not just accept someone's name and income because it is convenient? My mother believes inconvenience is something other people should solve. Nia almost smiled. Family loan fraud often begins as confidence. Andre leaned back. What is our position? Your position is that you will not sign or authorize anything, you dispute any use of Andre's name in the application, and you request all communications with the lender regarding his proposed involvement. I will send that letter. I nodded. Nia tapped the deed. And this is the heart of it. They are asking your husband to become financially responsible while transferring future ownership benefit to your brother. That is not help. That is extraction. Extraction. The word sounded clinical and exact. I had spent my childhood being useful. Andre had spent 8 years being excluded. Now they wanted to extract usefulness from both of us and call it reconciliation. Nia sent the letter the next morning to the bank officer listed on the packet, my parents, Camden, and the paralegal service that had drafted the deed. By noon, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Helena, I cannot believe you involved an attorney before speaking with us. We came to you in trust. This is humiliating. Your father has not slept. Camden is terrified. Andre is a successful man now, and I thought he might want to show grace. Grace. People who deny dignity often request grace when consequences arrive. Andre listened to the voicemail with me. His face stayed still until the end. Then he said, successful man now. Yes, interesting. I know. Not family, just successful. That was the line under everything. If Andre were still patching pharmacy ceilings from an old truck, my mother would not have stood in our rain asking for grace. By Thursday, the bank officer, a woman named Jocelyn Pierce, called Nia and requested a meeting. She had concerns. That was the phrase, concerns. The bank had received my parents' refinance application through a mortgage broker, and Andre had been listed as a potential non-occupant co-borrower with estimated income, business ownership, and credit score range. No authorization had been submitted yet, but the loan file included a family support letter stating Andre Hayes had agreed in principle to assist the Porters due to reconciliation with his wife's family. Reconciliation. Another word stolen before it happened. Jocelyn wanted everyone in one room to clarify consent before the pending foreclosure deadline. I did not want to go. I had spent 8 years building a life outside that family table. Walking back into a room with my parents, Camden, and a bank officer felt like returning to an old injury because it had mailed an appointment card. Andre squeezed my hand. We do not have to. No. I said we do. Why? Because they built this around your name, they should have to hear you keep it. The meeting was scheduled for Monday at First Carolina Bank, downtown Laurel Springs. The weekend before, I opened my own folder. Not theirs, mine. I printed the foreclosure notice, the refinance packet, the quitclaim deed, Nia's letter. My father's old email from the week before our wedding. Helena, I will not allow that man in my home. If you marry him, do not expect us to pretend he is one of us. I printed my mother's text from the wedding week. Please do not bring Andre to the house again. Your father is upset and neighbors notice things. I printed Camden's message from 6 years earlier, after Andre's company did a project for a restaurant Camden liked. Guess he turned out useful after all, lol. I printed the photo Aunt Laurel had given me at the wedding, Grandma on the Willow Crest porch holding me as a baby. I did not know whether I would use that one. I just wanted it with me. Then I found the video. I had forgotten it existed. 2 weeks before our wedding, after Dad blocked Andre from the porch, I had recorded the last 30 seconds without meaning to. My phone had been in my hand because I was trying to show Mom a message from the caterer. When Dad said, "If you leave with him, do not come back expecting us to pretend this is normal." The phone captured the porch light, Mom's pale face behind him, Andre's steady profile, and my own voice saying, "Normal is not the same as right." I watched it once. Then I sent it to Nia. She replied, "Bring it." Monday morning, Andre wore a charcoal suit. Not because he needed to impress anyone. Because he said men who had once been told to stay off a porch were allowed to enter banks looking expensive if they felt like it. I wore a green dress and the gold earrings Denise had given me at our rehearsal dinner. My hands were cold. Andre noticed. "You are not on trial," he said. "I know. Say it." "I am not on trial." "And neither am I." "And neither are you. Good." First Carolina Bank sat in a brick building across from the courthouse, with polished floors, framed local history photos, and offices behind glass walls. Jocelyn Pierce met us in the lobby. She was in her 50s, with a neat gray bob, navy blazer, and the expression of a woman who had survived enough family financial meetings to believe in paper more than tears. "Nia is already here," she said. My parents in Camden were in the conference room. Dad looked older than I remembered. His hair had thinned. His shoulders rounded slightly. Mom sat beside him in a cream coat, clutching tissues she had not yet used. Camden wore a vest over a button-down with his company's logo on it, as if branding could survive bankruptcy. When Andre entered, every person in my family looked at him in a different way. Dad looked away first. Mom looked at his suit, then his watch, then his face. Camden looked at him like a creditor and a threat. Andre pulled out a chair for me, then sat beside me. Nia sat on his other side. Jocelyn took the head of the table. "Thank you for coming," she said. "The purpose of this meeting is to clarify the refinance application, proposed co-borrower status, and title intentions before First Carolina considers any further action." Mom began immediately. "Jocelyn, we appreciate your time. This has become more complicated than necessary because emotions are running high." Nia said, "Emotions did not place Mr. Hayes' name in a loan file." Mom's lips tightened. Jocelyn opened the file. The application submitted through broker channel lists Andre Hayes as proposed co-borrower. "Mr. Hayes, did you authorize that?" "No." "Did you provide income, tax, or business information?" "No." "Did you agree in principle to assist with the refinance?" "No." Dad shifted. Mom said, "We hoped he would. We did not intend anything improper." Jocelyn looked at the file. "The family support letter says otherwise." Nia placed a copy on the table. It was signed by my mother, Victoria Porter. In it, she wrote that Andre and Helena Hayes had reconciled with the family and wanted to help preserve the family home through a joint refinance. It described Andre as a successful local builder and son-in-law willing to support the Porters as part of family healing. I looked at Mom. Family healing, her eyes filled. "That is what I hoped this could become." "No," I said, "that is what you hoped his credit could become." Camden leaned forward. "Come on, Helena. We are not asking for a handout. The house has equity. Andre would not lose anything." Andre looked at him. "Then why is my name needed?" Camden flushed. "Because your numbers make the loan work." "My risk makes your plan work." Camden's mouth tightened. Mom jumped in. The plan was for a temporary refinance until Camden's receivables come in. Nia looked at Camden. "Please provide the receivables schedule." He be. "Linked what?" "The receivables you just referenced. Contracts, invoices, payment dates." Camden looked at Mom. Jocelyn looked at him too. "I do not have that here." Nia nodded. "Then we will stick to the documents we do have." She placed the draft quitclaim deed on the table. "Mrs. Porter, why does the proposed deed add Camden to title after closing?" Dad looked sharply at Mom. That was the first moment I realized he had not known everything. "What deed?" he asked. Camden went still. Mom's hand tightened around her tissue. It was only a draft. Dad reached for it. Jocelyn slid a copy toward him. Dad read slowly. "Camden as joint tenant." His voice was low. Mom said, "Russell, we discussed protecting the house for the children." "Children?" I said. She did not look at me. Dad looked at Camden. Did you know about this? Camden swallowed. Mom said it was for estate planning. Nia said, estate planning that gives Camden survivorship interest, while Andre Hayes carries loan liability without ownership. Mom snapped, he was not required to be on the deed. Andre leaned forward slightly. No, just the debt. The room went quiet. Andre's voice was calm, but I knew what it cost him. Mom turned to him, tears finally ready. Andre, I know mistakes were made years ago. I know Russell handled things badly. But we are asking you to be the bigger man. I felt Andre's hand still beside mine. For a second I thought he might answer, then I did. You would not let my husband step on your porch. Now you want his name on your mortgage. Dad closed his eyes. Mom whispered, that is not fair. No, I said, what happened was not fair, this is accurate. Jocelyn looked down at the file, professional enough not to react and human enough to pause. Nia placed my father's email beside the loan packet. Helena, I will not allow that man in my home. If you marry him, do not expect us to pretend he is one of us. Dad stared at the words, 8 years old, still alive. Mom said, why would you bring that? Because this refinance asks Andre to save the home he was forbidden to enter. Dad's face changed. Not anger, shame maybe, real enough that I saw it before he hid it. Camden muttered, people say things. Andre looked at him. People also mean things. Camden looked away. Mom tried to gather herself. We are not the same people we were 8 years ago. I looked at her. Then, why did you come with a folder before an apology? That broke the rhythm of the room. Not dramatically, just enough. Mom looked at the table. Dad looked at me. Camden stared at the deed. Jocelyn wrote something in her notes. Nia said, for the record, Mr. Hayes will not co-sign, guarantee, provide income support, provide credit authorization, or attach his name to this refinance. Mrs. Hayes is also not authorizing any use of marital assets or household income. Mom looked up. Mrs. Hayes. I knew what she heard, not Helena Porter. Not her daughter who could be summoned back into family duty. Mrs. Hayes. The name she had refused to write on wedding cards. Jocelyn closed part of the file. Without Mr. Hayes as co-borrower, and without additional qualifying income, this refinance does not meet current underwriting requirements. Dad exhaled. Camden said, so that's it, we just lose the house. Jocelyn looked at him. You may pursue other options. Sale prior to foreclosure, short sale if applicable, repayment plan if investor allows, third-party funds, or bankruptcy counsel. But First Carolina cannot proceed on an unauthorized co-borrower. Mom's voice rose. Unauthorized sounds criminal. Nia looked at her. That is one reason we are clarifying it now. Dad rubbed his face. Victoria. She turned to him. I was trying to save our home. He looked at the deed. By giving it to Camden. That is not what I was doing. It is what the paper says. That sentence hit me unexpectedly. It is what the paper says. My father, who had once let my mother define the porch, was now looking at a document and refusing the softer story. Andre, Dad said. It was the first time my father had said my husband's name in my presence, without making it sound like an object he had stepped around. Andre looked at him, Dad swallowed. I was wrong. The words were small. Too small for 8 years. But true enough to make the room hold still. Dad continued. What I said on the porch was wrong, not badly handled, wrong. Mom closed her eyes. I felt something in my chest pull tight. Andre did not rush to forgive him. He did not perform grace for an audience. He said, yes, it was. Dad nodded. I am sorry. Andre was quiet for a long second. Then he said, I hear you. Not I forgive you, not it's okay, I hear you. It was more generous than my father had earned and less than he wanted. That felt right. Mom looked at me. Helena, no, I said. I already knew that tone. She wanted me to soften the room. Now that Dad had cracked it open, she wanted the daughter back, the translator, the one who could turn harm into a manageable family paragraph. "No," she whispered. "No, do not look at me to make this easier." Her face crumpled. "I do not know how to fix this. Start by not asking for his signature." She nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then I looked at Camden. "And you need to stop hiding behind them." He laughed once, bitter. "I am pretty exposed right now." "No," I said, "financially maybe, but not honestly. You knew Andre was being used." He looked down. "Yes." "Say it to him." Camden's jaw flexed. Mom whispered, "Camden." But he looked at Andre. "I knew they were putting your name in, because mine would not work, and Dad's numbers were shot. I told myself it was just paperwork until you agreed." Andre said, "I did not agree." "I know." "Then it was not paperwork." Camden nodded. "It was wrong." Those words did not redeem him. But they stopped the lie. Jocelyn, who had watched the family part of the meeting with the discipline of a bank officer who deserved a raise, gently redirected. "The loan file will be closed as incomplete and unauthorized regarding Mr. Hayes. The pending foreclosure timeline remains. I strongly recommend you seek independent legal and financial advice immediately." Mom asked, "Is there any way to save the house?" Jocelyn's expression softened slightly. "Possibly, but not this way, not this way." Those 3 words felt like the whole story. Maybe there are ways to save houses, families, reputations, businesses, and pride. But not by dragging the person you rejected into debt and calling it healing. The meeting ended without signatures, no refinance, no co-borrower. No deed transfer to Camden, hidden behind my husband's income. As we gathered our papers, Mom touched the edge of the old porch email. "Helena, why did you keep this?" I looked at her. Because everyone else kept pretending it disappeared. Dad flinched. Andre stood, buttoned his jacket, and held the door for me. In the hallway outside the conference room, Dad caught up to us. Andre stopped. Dad looked like a man trying to walk over broken glass barefoot. "I do not expect anything from you. I just want to say, if you ever decide you can come by, the porch is open." Andre looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "Mr. Porter, a porch is not open because the owner needs help. It is open when the person outside is welcome with nothing to offer." Dad's eyes filled. "You're right. I know." Then Andre walked away with me. In the parking lot, I finally let myself shake. Andre wrapped his arms around me carefully, as if I were a house with old cracks. "You did good," he said. "It does not feel good. It is not supposed to. It is supposed to be true." That was marriage, I think, not rescuing each other from pain, standing close enough that truth has company. The house on Willow Crest did not go to foreclosure immediately. Dad hired a bankruptcy attorney. He sold his fishing boat, 2 pieces of equipment, and a small lot he had bought years earlier as an investment. Mom sold jewelry I had never seen her wear, but had apparently kept because her mother told her gold was quieter than cash. Camden liquidated what he could of Porter Peak Outdoor Living and took a job as a project manager for another company, which meant for the first time in his life, someone else reviewed his work before paying him. They negotiated enough to postpone the sale. Eventually, they sold the house themselves. Not to save the family legacy, to prevent a worse loss. Willow Crest Lane closed 4 months after the bank meeting. My parents moved into a smaller townhouse near the edge of Laurel Springs. The hydrangeas did not come with them. Neither did the porch where my father had made his worst sentence permanent. Aunt Laurel told me Mom cried on moving day. I believed her. I also understood that grief for a house does not erase what happened on its steps. Dad called me 2 weeks after the sale. I almost did not answer, then I did. "Helena," he said. "Hi, Dad." The word Dad felt strange, not false, just underused. "I mailed something to your office." "What? A check?" I closed my eyes. "Dad, we do not want money." "It is not for the loan, it is for the wedding." I went silent. He continued, "I never gave you anything. Your mother and I did not come, we did not help. I know a check does not fix it." "No, I know." "Then why send it?" because not fixing everything is not a reason to fix nothing. That sounded like something he had learned the hard way. The check arrived 2 days later, $8,000. Memo line, wedding we missed. I stared at it for a long time. Andre found me holding it. What do you want to do? I don't know. We deposited it into a separate account and used it months later to fund a scholarship at the trade program where Andre sometimes mentored Yaun. G Builders. The scholarship was for students entering licensed trades from families who did not support their path. Andre chose the name. The Open Porch Fund. When I told Dad, he cried. Mom did not call, not then. She sent a card instead. Inside, in her careful handwriting, she wrote, Helena, I have rewritten this note many times because every version makes me sound better than I was. Your father was wrong on the porch, but I stood behind him. I let him say what I also believed but was too polite to say. That may be worse. I wanted Andre's help before I gave him respect. I am ashamed of that. I am sorry, Mom. I sat with that card for a long time. Not because it fixed anything. Because it used the right verbs, I stood. I believed, I wanted, I am ashamed, I am sorry, no, you felt. No mistakes were made. No, family is complicated. For my mother, that was not small. I showed Andre. He read it once, then handed it back. How do you feel? Suspicious. Good, I laughed, he smiled. And, sad, that makes sense. And relieved she wrote it without asking for something. Andre nodded. That part matters. It did. The first time my parents saw our home from the inside was not dramatic. There was no music, no speech, no sweeping forgiveness. It happened almost a year after the bank meeting, on a Saturday afternoon in October, when Denise Hayes invited both families to a small dinner after Andre received a local builder award. I thought she had lost her mind. Denise looked at me and said, Baby, I did not invite them to approve my son. I invited them to sit in a chair and know exactly whose table they are at. That woman should have run the country. My parents arrived 10 minutes early because shame sometimes makes people punctual. Dad brought flowers for Denise. Mom brought a pie from a bakery and admitted it was from a bakery. That alone felt like growth. At the door, Andre opened it. My father stopped on the porch. The silence was not long, but it was full. Then Dad said, Andre, thank you for having us. Andre looked at him. Come in, Russell. My mother stepped inside after him, eyes moving around the entryway, the floors, the trim, the staircase Andre had rebuilt, the photographs on our wall. Our wedding photo was there. The one under the string lights. Aunt Laurel was in the background. Andre's parents were laughing. My parents were absent. Mom saw it. I know she did because her eyes stopped. She did not say anything. Good. Some absences should not be filled with explanations. Dinner was not perfect. Dad talked too much about the flooring because he was nervous. Mom complimented the table 3 times. Camden did not come. Andre's father, Malcolm, told a story about Andre building a crooked birdhouse at age 9 and refusing to admit the roof sloped. Denise asked my mother whether she wanted coffee, and my mother said yes in a voice I had never heard from her before. Humble, not small. There is a difference. At the end of the night, Mom found me in the kitchen rinsing plates. After a minute, she said, This house feels peaceful. I looked at her. It is, she nodded. I used to think peace meant everyone staying where I placed them. That sentence was so honest I almost dropped the plate. And now? She looked toward the dining room, where Andre was laughing with his father and mine. Now I think maybe peace is when no one has to earn the chair. I did not hug her. I was not ready. But I handed her another plate. Sometimes that is where repair begins, not forgiveness, not trust. A plate handed across a sink, with truth finally standing in the room. As for Andre, he never did sign a loan for my parents. He never put his name on their mortgage. He never rescued Camden's company. He did something harder. He kept his dignity when people tried to rent it from him at a crisis rate. And me. I learned that love does not require you to turn your spouse into collateral for the family that rejected him. I learned that being a daughter does not mean opening every door just because your parents finally found the right emergency. I learned that some houses are not lost in foreclosure. They are lost years earlier, when the people inside choose pride over love and call the locked door tradition. My parents cut me off for marrying a black contractor. 8 years later, they needed his name on their house. But they did not get to use his name as a bridge over the words they had never repaired. They had to walk the long way, through truth, through documents, through apology, through a smaller home, through a porch they no longer owned. That is my story. If the family that rejected your marriage came back needing your spouse's help, what would you have done? Would you have opened the door, closed it, or made them read every document first? Share this with someone who needs permission to protect the person who stood beside them when family walked away. B. Before you go, tell me your name and the city you're watching from. I want to know where this story found you.